So hello everyone, my name is Marlena Pearson. I'm a PhD student at Ryerson University. I'm completing my dissertation on math phobia and the teaching of statistics. And through this research, my goal is to understand how promoting resourcefulness using course content and pedagogical practices might help students become less fearful of statistics and mathematics. It's my hope that reducing their fear will lead to better course outcomes, so better grades, and of course, maybe even a greater enjoyment of statistics in general. So I'm here today with my PhD supervisor, Dr. Maureen Reed. Dr. Reed is a full professor in the Department of Psychology at Ryerson, and much of her research focuses on undergraduate student success and resourcefulness, especially among non-traditional students. Dr. Reed has taught undergraduate statistics courses for more than 3 decades, and she continues to be inspired by the confidence students gain as they learn to successfully navigate through statistics courses. I have taught undergraduate statistics as a course instructor at Ryerson University for 3 summer classes, and during our most recent winter semester, finishing just in mid-April of this year. So in past years, Dr. Reed and I have both noticed that there's always some proportion of students, sometimes even around like 1/4 to 1/3 of students in our classes, who have high anxiety about dealing with the mathematical component of the course. For some students, the fear seems to come from poor performance during their high school mathematics courses. And for others, it seems to be because they've just been away from math for some time. Previous researchers have shown that statistics educators often report students have negative feelings about statistics and research methods courses, and that some students feel these courses are almost like a roadblock that's standing in the way of them completing their degree. We hear a lot of individuals, for example, who show up on the first day of their class and they say things like, "Oh, I can't do math. I just want to get through this course and have it done." Or does this class actually have a lot of math in it? So it's like they're very frightened of the math component of this course. And hopefully we can find ways to reduce that fear. So Pan and Tang have noticed that math phobia and the fear of statistics is a very common problem among students. And I'm sure a lot of us have noticed that as well. So students who have more positive previous experience with mathematics and or stats courses tend to have more positive outcomes in these courses. So for example, those students with greater math aptitude are less anxious about taking a stats class. They tend to achieve higher grades. Unfortunately, students with greater math anxiety, they tend to have poorer attitudes towards taking a stats class. They tend to have less motivation when it comes to completing their stats work, and these of course lead to lower grades for these students. Although previous research has addressed how implementing changes in course design might help, there are still many students who struggle to get a passing grade. So thus for these students, it must be factors that are outside the classroom, such as the attitude they're bringing with them to class, the motivation level that they're bringing with them to class, and their enjoyment level that while they're in the class or completing their work, that's impacting the students' expectations of what they think their grades should be. So when we talk about resourcefulness and its impact on grades, it might be that the outside factor students are bringing in is their level of, academic resourcefulness. General resourcefulness, though, according to Rosenbaum, suggests that we require 4 skills in order to become resourceful people. So first, resourceful individuals can employ positive self-statements and control their physiological and emotional effects of a stressor. So for example, if someone's feeling anxious about something, they might, repeat to themselves that I can cope with this, I can handle this, I can do this. Second, resourceful individuals seem to have sort of a repertoire or a toolbox of problem-solving strategies that can be applied to whatever challenge they're currently facing. So these strategies include the ability to plan ahead, the ability to define the problem that they're facing, to evaluate the alternatives to this problem and be able to problem solve, and to anticipate outcomes and consequences. So, for example, Akung and Karochi, as well as Kennett and Pettis, found that students with low and high general resourcefulness, well, they reported similar amounts of academic stress. So the amount of academic stress that these students are experiencing doesn't seem to differ. However, the stressors had a greater impact among students with the lower resourcefulness skills. So the low resourcefulness students reported lower grades compared to the high resourcefulness students, even though they experienced similar stress levels. Third, resourceful individuals can delay small rewards like going out with friends or binge watching an entire Netflix series in order to focus on the present challenge. It is often the case that students who do not persist in higher education, they tend to have lower resourcefulness skills. And finally, resourceful individuals believe that they can achieve a positive outcome to the challenge or challenges that they're facing through their own efforts. So when we look at these types of resourcefulness skills and consider them in an academic setting, we find that overall they're a little bit different, but a lot of things we're just taking and changing from a general resourcefulness model to putting it in the context of, okay, now we're going to solve university and school related problems using this kind of skill set. So academic resourcefulness ends up being a little bit different from general resourcefulness. And Kennett and Kiefer, and also Kennett and Reed, refer to academic resourcefulness as the ability of a student to set appropriate learning goals, to problem solve effectively by planning and evaluating alternatives when faced with academic challenges, to think of academic challenges as something positive, to draw on academic resources, for example, using their course outline, going to the library, talking to student services, or even contacting their TA, which sometimes we don't see students do as much as they should. Also, understanding and structuring their studying appropriately for a challenge and applying consequences like rewards for learning. And this includes learning from their mistakes. These academic resourcefulness skills allow students to cope with stress during academic challenges. Kennett and Reed, for example, examined academic resourcefulness in university undergraduate students and showed that those who are more academically resourceful achieve higher grades than those who were not more academically resourceful. And those who were more academically resourceful were more likely to persist in higher education. So what I'm suggesting with my PhD research is that it's possible that these students who are showing up to class and stating that they're very fearful of the course content, they're math phobic, they're worried they're not going to be able to pass. Well, maybe it's that these students are bringing with them just these low resourcefulness skills, and being able to change that or being able to teach them better academic resourcefulness skills in the context of statistics could be helpful. So at Ryerson, our entire first year cohort arrives with approximately an A-level average from high school, and many of these students do well in their non-statistics courses. Unfortunately, when we see them enter their first statistics course, many seem to have the characteristics of students with low academic resourcefulness. For example, they display poor attitudes towards the course content, or they feel that the challenges involved in the class they're not positive. And they ignore a lot of the academic resources that are available to them, or they're just not studying appropriately for this type of course. So it could be that some students who also have low resourcefulness are also math phobic, or it could be that some students have low resourcefulness, but it's specific to just coming into a statistics course. So they have these skills when it comes to their other classes, but they're not successfully transferring those skills into this type of a course because this is probably something that's fairly new to them, or they haven't done a mathematics course for a little while. So this means that here, course context does matter. And the anxiety of math and lack of knowledge about math may affect their ability to use the requisite resourcefulness skills they have for their other classes. So what I'm suggesting that we do is take the time and teach students how to be resourceful in statistics. And so to be able to do that, we're just drawing from a lot of those academic resourcefulness skills that I'm assuming they have for their other classes, but I want to put this in a more statistics related paradigm for them. So they understand, okay, I can take this that I do for my other class, and now I'm going to use it over here in this way to become better at this class. So it might be the most helpful to teach these resourcefulness skills in the context of the statistics course. To be able to do this, we need to plan challenges that help students. So for example, if I want students to set appropriate learning goals, let's say the goal is for them to be able to interpret a statistics outcome and then apply it in a larger context of literature. So then within the first class, I should articulate what the students' goals are. And then moving forward, I want the students to be able to start problem solving effectively and planning and evaluating alternatives. So what I want them to do is start learning from the information that we're using in one context and applying it to other places. So what I'm going to do to be able to do that is encourage students to take steps towards their goals by providing learning checks. So for example, non-graded in-class questions where they're required to interpret and apply statistical outcomes. I should also have stepwise assignments where feedback is provided at each step, and they must address all these kinds of feedback. So this might take the form of a lab report that's completed in smaller sections. And then through the term, they create a larger, interesting paper out of these smaller lab report pieces. I could also have smaller quizzes to scaffold these students towards learning a goal. So a lot of this still raises many, many questions though about, how do we do this? Will teaching students resourcefulness actually reduce their fear of statistics? Of course, for the sake of my PhD work, I'm hoping that it does. But it seems that many of these students may have issues with just confidence. They may be trying to avoid challenges. They might lack motivation to stress from the course. And they have low expectations for themselves. And these students might be able to just be unable to translate the skills that they're using in other classes to a statistics kind of class. Because like I said, they're coming in with good grades. They need good grades to be able to get to university. And then it just seems like in one specific class, they're terrified and falling short of the goals that they want to achieve. So some of the questions that we still need to consider when we're looking through these kinds of things is, well, how do we structure learning where we're inclusive of these students' needs? So these most fearful students' needs, how do we structure a course where we can include them more effectively? Or what type of activities in statistics might be best to assist students with math phobia? Do these students have unique needs beyond the needs of students who aren't facing math phobia type issues? And another, how can we consider these math challenge students when trying to teach a larger group of students? Because oftentimes we see that it's a small subset of the students who they seem to be extremely fearful of statistics and the math course. But the thing is, we don't want to leave anybody behind, and we don't want anyone to become bored with the course while we're taking care of a smaller subset. So one of the main questions that I have and that maybe you want to consider to discuss is that what activities might actually help? And what kinds of things can we start doing that help all of the students, come together and sort of get better at this kind of thing as we're moving forward in stats, because it is a very important topic if you're going to continue in psychology or in a lot of other places in life. Okay. And that's the